Hey, this is Jimmy Smutek with Smutek Creative. My last post, I showed you how to take a copy of your live website, your live WordPress website, and how to get that running on your computer. And we did this so that we could set up a safe kind of testing ground to try out things with our website without having to do so with our live website. So for example, we could completely redesign our site from the safety of our computer without having to affect our live site or without having to put up a coming soon page or anything like that. So this week I'm going to show you how to take that local copy that's running on your computer and put it back on the internet and replace your live site with all the cool stuff you've done to your local site. There's two ways to do this. One of them is easy and one of them is really, really easy. I'm going to cover both, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's step through how to take this stuff and put it back. So here in this tab, I've got my live site at smutekcreative.com/example. And in tab 1, I have my local site. So what I've done is I've switched out the theme, and I have added a contact form here. And now I want to point out that the stuff I'm showing here is strictly for example. Obviously, you could switch out a theme real quick and do something like install a contact form. But the assumption is that if you're making a local copy of your site, you're doing so because you want to explore some fairly major changes, like maybe a complete site redesign. So with that said, I want to go ahead and show how to take this thing and put it back. If you haven't checked out the last post, how to get WordPress running on your computer, I would suggest you go ahead and check that out because I'm going to step through this kind of quickly. Basically, it's just everything we did in the last post, but in reverse. And I don't mean following the steps backward, but I mean the data is going reverse. So the data is going to be going from our computer out to the WordPress site. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So here on my local site, I'm going to jump into my control panel. And the first thing that I need to do is to go to Tools, Migrate DB. And again, we covered this in the last post. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export a copy of my database. All right, so I need to know what settings I'm going to replace. So I have to go over to my live site and grab these settings. So I'm going to jump over to my live site. I'm going to go to the dashboard. And I'm going to go to Tools, Migrate DB. Okay, and I'm going to grab these fields from the Find fields. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste into the Replace field. And again, I'm going to jump back over to my live site. Copy this field. And I'm going to paste it where it goes. Okay, and then all I'm going to do is click Migrate. Okay, so Migrate DB Pro is making Migrate DB is making a copy of my database. Okay, so now that's done, and that should be in my Downloads folder. So let's jump over there. All right, here we go. Fantastic. So this is our local database that we want to send up, and all the fields have been replaced with the fields that we need for our live database. So now let's jump over to the live site. So I can't stress enough, before you do anything else, make a copy of your live database. Like, just make a quick copy of it. In order to do so, I'm going to go over to phpMyAdmin, which is where we import the database from. And I'm just going to choose Export here. So I've clicked the Export, and I'm going to choose Custom. I'm going to leave this as is. We're going to export all the tables. We're going to save the output to a file. And that is pretty much it. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to click Go. All right, so there's a copy of the remote database. I'm going to jump over to my Downloads folder, okay, and I'm going to make a folder here, and I'm just going to call this Backup DB. So this is a backup database of my live database. And the reason I'm doing this is that if something happens and I screw stuff up, I can just re-import my other database and everything will be back up and running. Okay? So with that said, the next thing that we have to do is to make sure that any new files that we've added to our local site also exist on a remote site. Okay, so what I've done, let me go ahead and close this, jump back over to the front end, is I've set up a new theme. So I need to make sure that this theme is installed on a remote site before I import the database. And I've also installed a plugin for the contact form. So I need to make sure that that plugin is on the remote site. So let's start with the theme. So the theme's really easy. So let's go Appearance, Themes. And I'm using the ROMs theme by Anders Noren. Anders Noren does some really great stuff. All of his themes are free. I'll leave the link in the blog post. I really suggest you go and check out his stuff. So because this is a free theme, all I really have to do now is to jump back over to my live site and go to Appearance, Themes. Okay, and then I want to click Add New. And I'm going to search for ROMs, like Dieter ROMs. That's what the theme's named after, or that's who the theme's named after. So I'll just click Install. Okay, great. So I'm not going to activate it just yet. I'm just going to leave it as is. And the next thing I need to do is I need to get my plugins synced up. So I'm going to go to Plugins, Installed Plugins. And I'm using Gravity Forms for my contact form. Gravity Forms is a premium plugin, which means that I cannot download this from the WordPress plugin repository. So I need to send this up with FTP. FTP stands for File Transfer Protocol. And if you're not familiar with this, get with your hosting company and get yourself an FTP client if you need it. If you're using all free plugins, you can just run through the install process from the plugin installer. But in my case here, I have an FTP client called Transmit. On the left is my local site, on the right is my remote site, so I'm just going to go into the WP content folder. Now, again, this is my WordPress website. I'm going to go into Plugins, okay, and I'm going to select Gravity Forms because I need this to be up on my live website, and I'm just going to drag it over and drop it. And it's going to take a second for this to upload. And if it takes too long, I'll just fast forward through this. Okay, the plugin has completed uploading. So now that that's done, all we're going to do is we're going to go back to PHPMyAdmin. And again, we're using PHPMyAdmin on the live site. If you don't know how to access PHPMyAdmin on your live site, it varies from host to host. I would contact your web hosting company and say, hey, how do I access PHPMyAdmin? And the first thing that I'm going to do here is I am going to select all the tables here. I'm going to check all. I have my correct database selected, and let me show you the way to make sure you have your correct database selected. If you have more than one, find this table called Options and just click the name. So right here I see the URL smoochtechcreative.com/example. Okay, so this is what I want. All right, so I am going to check all. And this is going to seem really scary, but remember, we've made a backup of the database, so it's no problem. So I'm going to click Drop, and it's going to say, are you sure you want to do this? And yes, we want to execute that query. All right, so now all those tables are gone, which seems really scary, but now we're going to import. So let's choose a file. And this is the database that we exported, and I'm going to import it. We'll click Go. And it's going to pull in all those tables. And it takes just a second. Okay, import is successfully completed. Now we should get logged out. So let's jump to the dashboard. Oh, and it looks like something went wrong. So what I'm going to show you now is, in the event of disaster, what do we do? So let's go ahead and jump back over here to PHPMyAdmin. Let's click the database and say, like, oh my goodness, I just screwed this up. What do I do? Okay, so we're going to go through the same exact thing. We're going to check all and select all the tables that we just imported. We're going to drop them. We'll select Drop, and we'll click Yes. Now we're going to go to Import. We're going to choose File. And we're going to go to our backup database, and this is why it's so important to make a copy of that database. We'll click Open and Go. Okay, import successful. So we do not want to be on this install. Let's just go to WP Admin. We'll click Enter, and here we go. Our site is back the way we left it before we did any craziness. So let's find out what the problem was. I'm fairly certain that our database tables didn't match up. So let me step through that again real quick. So let's go here to our example site, and I'm going to go to Plugins, Add New. And I covered this in the how to get WordPress running on your computer. So let's see. So it's already installed. So let's go to Tools, Settings. Okay, I don't think the plugin is active. Let's go ahead and activate the plugin. And change database prefix. Let's activate that. And now let's go to Settings, change database prefix. Okay, so the database prefix on our local site is D4X2. So we need to change that to match the remote site, which is now LLCJ. So we don't have to really install it on the remote site, so I'm just going to go, and I see that the prefix is LLCJ, so I'll jump back to my local site and I will type in LLCJ. Oops, sorry, that's existing. LLCJ underscore. Okay, great. Save changes. All right, that's great. Let's go to Plugins, Installed Plugins, and we can deactivate change database prefix. Okay, so now let's step back through the process. I'm going to jump back over to my Downloads folder, and I'm going to delete this faulty database because we need to do this again. So let's go to Dashboard, Plugins, Tools, Migrate DB. Let's make sure this stuff matches up. I'm going to copy the first field. I'm going to go to Tools, Migrate DB, paste in the first field. So just stepping through this again, because I realized that the database table prefix did not match up. All right, sorry, I just did that wrong. I'm trying to go too fast. So we're going to paste here, and we are going to paste this here. And we're going to click Migrate. All right, so now it's exporting with the proper database table prefix. So this should work. Sorry for the snafus there. I'm kind of doing this on the fly without any edits. So if it's a little rusty, my apologies. So now we're going to go back to phpMyAdmin. We don't need to drop tables. All we're going to do is click Import. We're going to choose a file. Okay, and we're going to pick the database that we just exported. We're going to click Open and go. Import is finished. So let's go to Settings, Permalinks on the live site, and we might get logged out. Yep, we did, so that's a good sign. So I just logged in. I'm going to click Save Changes. Now our live site should match our local site. And there we go. Fantastic. Okay, and I know that seemed kind of like a lot of stuff, but it really isn't, because remember that I covered the contingency of what happens if we screw up, right? So let me check the contact form. Okay, and you'll see my contact form is set up. My plugin has been already authorized because that's all stored in the database. And that is the easy way to do it. So next I'm going to show you the really easy way to do this using the premium version of DB Migrate called DB Migrate Pro. Okay? Okay, so now I want to show the really easy way to do this. So here's my remote site that we just pushed up the database, and I've synced my remote site to my local site. So now let's step through again. So let me jump back over to my local site where I have made some changes. Okay, so now I have a new local site. I've done a bunch of stuff to this. I've installed a nice slider on the home page. On the live site, I have it set up in a blog style setup where the home page is the blog. Here I have a dedicated home page and a separate blog page. I've got my contact form still, and I've got this nice slider with a bunch of mostly unremarkable clip art. But this is just for the purpose of example. So the really easy way to do this without having to deal with the phpMyAdmin or the database drops or anything like that is using the Pro version of DB Migrate Pro. So I'm going to jump over here to the Delicious Brains website, and you can check this out yourself. And I will say without a doubt, as a person working in the self-hosted WordPress space, this plugin has saved me more time, more money, and more frustration than any other plugin that I've ever used, hands down. If you're going to be migrating a lot of databases, like this is without a doubt the way to go. Or if you just are trying to sync up your site and you don't want to have to deal with dropping database tables and PHPMyAdmin, this is the way to go. Show you the pricing and purchase page real quick. So it's $199 for developer license, studio license. If you have a web design studio, and personal license is $90. That's probably what most of you that are watching this screencast would go for. I'm going to leave a coupon. I have a coupon for, I think it might be 20% off. That'll be in the blog post. Check that out. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started on this. So again, just like last time, the things that we need to do is we need to make sure that all of our media is synced up. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to transmit to my FTP client. Okay, and I've added a new plugin, which is Soliloquy, that I'm using on the front page. That's what I'm using for my slider. And it is a premium plugin, so I need to send that up via FTP. So we covered that before. And the other thing that I need to do is I'm going to jump back out to the WP content folder, and I need to make sure that my media folders are in sync, my uploads. So if I jump into uploads, the only thing that I really need to do is to make sure that this 2015 folder matches the 2015 folder on the live site. So basically, inside of these folders are all of your uploads. And if we open one of these up, you'll see it's broken down by month. So there's February uploads and here's March uploads. Okay, so since I've just been working on this today, all I need to worry about is syncing my March uploads. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to drag this folder, March, over to 2015 and drop it, and it's going to say, hey, you're trying to replace stuff, but that's fine. So what it's going to do here is it's going to take all of the files that already exist on your remote site and replace them along with all of the files that you've recently added on your local site. If you haven't added any additional media to your site, you can skip this step. So I'm going to go ahead and click replace, and I'll cut the video and fast forward to when I've finished uploading everything. Okay, so I have everything synced up. Again, we're just making sure that the contents of our uploads folder matches the contents of the uploads folder on the live site. So it's a fairly simple thing to do, and we're making sure that we have all the plugins on the live site that we also have on the local site. So we're making sure that stuff matches up. So now let's get to the good part. So in order to sync these databases, I am going to go over to my live site. I'm going to jump into the dashboard, and I have already installed DB Migrate Pro. So I'm going to be stepping through the premium version here. So it's as simple as going to Tools, Migrate DB Pro, and we're going to click the Settings tab. And I'm going to click right here, Accept Push Requests, because I'm going to be pushing from my computer up to the live site. And I'm going to copy the connection info. I'm going to drop this request size down a little bit because I'm running this example on my client server. So we'll drop it down to 512. Now I'm going to jump back over here to the live site. I'm going to go to Settings, to Tools, Migrate DB Pro. And I'm going to click Push, because I'm going to push this database up to the live site. So the first thing that's going to happen is, now you noticed last time we ran into the problem where we uploaded the database and then realized that we had an issue with different table prefixes. So the cool thing about DB Migrate Pro is it's going to tell me right here. It says, hey, we've got different table prefixes. So the prefix on the, right here, your remote install is configured to use the table LLCJ. Yada, 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 etc., etc. So what we need to do is we need to, again, change the prefix. So the point here is that DB Migrate Pro, before you even go ahead with the migration, it tells you that there's a problem. So I'm going to go back to plugins. I'm going to activate the Change Database Prefix plugin, and I'm going to go to Settings, Change Database Prefix, and I want to change my prefix to LLCJ, and let's save changes. And let's go to plugins, installed plugins, and I'm going to deactivate that plugin again since we're done with it. Now let's go back to Tools, Migrate DB Pro. I'm going to jump back over here to the remote site, copy the connection info again, over to the local site. I'm going to check push, paste in my connection info. Okay, and there's no warnings, so I'm just going to click Migrate. Now Migrate DB Pro is going to do all the work, so there's no worrying about exporting databases or anything like that. And I will say one cool thing with the developer license with regards to keeping the media synced, the developer license comes with a free plugin called Media Files, which does just what it sounds like. The free plugin will sync all the media files and push up any changes, you know, any new media files. One thing I should have pointed out, and that I usually do, but if you check this checkbox here, it's going to make a backup of the remote database before you replace it. So you definitely want to do that. Make sure you back up your remote. I didn't do it this time. It was a little sloppy on my part. But so now let's go over here to Settings, Permalinks. It's going to ask us to log in. Let's do that. Let's save changes on the permalinks. Okay, so we updated the media files and the plugin. One thing that I did forget to do was the theme. So the new theme that I'm using is Sketch by Automatic. So what I need to do before I visit the front end is just go to Appearance, Themes, and I want to install. And see, WordPress is telling me here, like, hey, there's a problem. The database is telling me you have a theme called Sketch active, but it's not installed. So let's go to Add New. So the lesson here is to just make sure that all of your files on your local site sync with your remote site. So you need to make sure the theme is up there on the remote site. You need to make sure the database, the media is up there, and any plugins. So let's just activate it and jump to the front end, and we should get a perfect match to our local site. And there we go. So that's it, and that's how you do it with DB Migrate Pro. Super easy. I hope that this screencast was helpful, and I will see you next time.